Paddy Andrews, we've just watched Kildare 112, Dublin 12 points. Kildare have got their first win of the 2022 season in Division 1 and Dublin have lost their fourth game in a row. Can I get your initial thoughts straight after the final whistle?
Yeah, well, look, it was a pretty tight game as we expected. I think there was a massive crowd here today anticipating that, and to be honest, for the first 25 minutes it was very nip and tuck. It was 4 points each. Dublin were playing reasonably well and looked a lot more solid at the back, but it was that little period just before half time again which has caused Dublin issues, particularly in Tralee against Kerry and also against Armagh. Kildare reel off the next 4 points. Daniel Flynn, who caused havoc all day in the Dublin full back line, they got their tails up and went in with an 8 points to 4 lead. But there was pretty stiff breeze behind them. Dublin, you're thinking with the elements behind them at their back, would come out and put up a fight. But it all came down to the goal in the end. And I had a feeling of a game like that. Scores were pretty much at a premium. And Daniel Flynn again breaks through, draws three defenders, pops the ball inside, and Kildare have an overlap, and eventually Jimmy Hyland bundles the ball to the net. He finishes with 1-5, but that goal ultimately, it left Dublin just too much to do to try and get it back. And look, I suppose if you're being brutally honest, Kildare were probably value for that victory. They never relinquished that lead, and it deserved 2 points for Kildare.
It was nip and tuck for the whole game though, as you said. Like, it never felt like Dublin were out of it. They just couldn't get a goal, and they made three massive chances. They may have had one late goal chance that was saved as well, but they had three big chances before that, two in the first 3 minutes. Dessie Farrell'S spoke about poor execution being the issue after the game. He said maybe that's a lack of confidence. What do you put it down to?
Yeah, well, look, it's been a challenge for Dublin. It's been well highlighted in the 4 games today that they've struggled to raise green flags. And to be fair, I thought in the first 20 minutes that you could see there was a lot more directness in Dublin's play. I thought they were a lot more incisive up front. Brian Fenton has a great chance after a slick move after only 2 or 3 minutes, and it's a good save but by the Kildare goalkeeper. Then I suppose the two massive chances. A brilliant move again by Dublin that ends up with Dean Rock seemingly with an open goal, and Mick O'Grady comes out of nowhere with a block. I was a hooligan. Kildare somehow cleared the ball off the line, and then obviously in the second half, at a key moment in the game, it would have brought it back to a point for Dublin, and Brian Howard seems to just lose his footing with the goal gaping as well. So look, Dublin are probably low on confidence. You can see that in their play. They're taking an extra second, a bit of hesitation. What's taken for granted over so many years that Dublin were so ruthless and clinical up front. They're really struggling at the minute, and like I say, ultimately the goal was the difference today, and Dublin had 2 or 3 major opportunities that they just weren't clinical enough, and that's what's cost them today. So it's an area they'll need to work on. They 12 points again. It's not a great return from Dublin up front, and they've probably struggled to get with that cohesion and that execution up front. And they've 3 games throughout March now against the 3 Ulster teams to try and gain some sort of confidence from this league campaign going into the championship, but it's a big ask against Donegal, Monaghan, Tyrone over the next couple of weeks in March.
In terms of what did work for Dublin, we might have a word about Johnny Cooper. We might talk about this a bit more in depth in the football pod this week with James O'Donoghue, but Johnny Cooper was back. Defensively they were probably a bit more solid. They weren't as open as we've seen in previous games. Up top, Kieran Kilkenny definitely played closer to the goal, and he kicked some lovely scores. There was a lot going through him. Sean Bugler's performance was very impressive. He was very direct, got 4 scores. What positives stood out to you then from Dublin?
You're right, I thought that defensively they looked a lot more solid today. You could see that towards the end, to be honest, in the second half of the Mayo game, Mick Fitzsimons and Johnny Cooper coming back in. There's just an organisation there that those guys will bring with their experience, and I thought that was definitely an improvement today. And saying that, you look at Kildare, I think 110 between Daniel Flynn and Jimmy Hyland, so still areas for improvement back there, but I do think the addition of Johnny and Fitzy coming back in give that more solidity, I suppose, to the Dublin back line. Up front, you're right, Bugler was the standout guy with 4 points from play. Kieran was quite good as well, scoring 2 points, but if you look over the whole Dublin forward line, they're the only 2 forwards to score from play. That is an issue for Dublin. Again, Dessie is giving guys opportunities, guys like Ross McGarry, Lorcan O'Dell. Good to see Aaron Byrne back. Dublin need a wider range of scorers, but if you're looking for positives, I suppose, from today, Bugler was very impressive, and it was just that directness and speed of play which Dublin have probably been lacking so far in the National League. It's been quite lateral and quite passive. That bit of get up and go, really, is as simple as that. He was the real spark, I suppose, in the Dublin attack today. So some positives.
Let's talk about the Newbridge factor. You were here early, Paddy. You got your coffee in the town. You were in soaking up the atmosphere before the game started. It was packed. There must have been 9,000. I think capacity is 8,500. There must have been more here. I'm sure there was more. But like, the atmosphere was unbelievable. For me, one of the standout moments was Kevin Feely coming on and the noise in the crowd in the 63rd minute, because Dublin were still in that game. There was 3 or 4 points in it. Feely makes a massive mark, and like that's where home advantage makes a big difference, because if Feely's coming on in Croke Park or a different ground, there's no noise, there's no kick you get out of a sub like that. And then in the first half, some of Kildare's shooting, and it's definitely into the scoring end, it's into the town end. Some of their shooting was bloody brilliant. Tell me what you liked about Kildare, and we can start maybe with Daniel Flynn and Jimmy Hyland's performance.
Yeah, well, look, I've said it all along. Players love the National League because of experiences like this. You have a full house here today. Like I say, I got into Newbridge about an hour and a half before throw, and there was a buzz around the place. Big Dublin contingent behind the goal and on the terraces, and massive atmosphere around that. You don't get it in a lot of the championship games, so that's a big plus for the National League, and not just today in Newbridge. I think you've seen it across all the grounds. Despite horrendous weather, there's big support coming out, and Kildare fancied themselves coming into this game today, and it's been a long time since you could realistically say that coming up against Dublin. So there was an expectation on Kildare today, and they delivered it. Like, they were full value. Dublin were kind of nip and tuck, but Kildare deserved that victory today. And the positives for them, for Glenn Ryan, Anthony Rainbow, Johnny Doyle, Dermot Earley, that's what they're going to bring. They're going to bring energy, they're going to bring enthusiasm to it, and that's a massive win for them. We would not underestimate, not just in terms of staying in Division 1, but going into the Leinster Championship, that Kildare will fancy themselves that they can do something in that championship. And I think the big plus, when Kildare play well, it's usually built around Daniel Flynn and Jimmy Hyland. They're dangerous inside. They're two of the sharpest inside forwards that you're going to get, and when those two guys click, it's a massive plus. And like you said it, Kevin Feely's had a terrible run with injuries. He is a brilliant footballer. If they can get that guy, that he can get up to 70 minutes, even the 10-15 minutes he got today, you can see he's getting bangs. You're always worried about him when he goes down, but he's such a brilliant player. If he gets firing and he gets 70 minutes coming into the summer, and the likes of Daniel Flynn and Jimmy Hyland can keep up that scoring rate, there's a lot of positives for Kildare to take.
I grabbed Jimmy Hyland for 2 minutes after the game. He was being mobbed by supporters and looking for selfies, and he said the moral victories, that the good performances so far were no good. They needed to get points on the board. Kildare have 3 points now on the board. Dublin are rock bottom with 0. Monaghan and Donegal are in and around there as well. We spoke about it last week on the football pod. If relegation is the price to pay for Dublin this year, to where they can unearth a couple of players, do you think they're getting enough out of these games? Like that experience today in front of a raucous crowd in Kildare, they're going up to Healy Park in 2 weeks. It's going to be no different. Is it going to bring these players on?
Well, of course it does. It answers questions that Dessie needs answered. To be fair, Dublin have lost in the space of the last 2 years, 18 months, probably 10 or 11 players through retirements, through guys stepping away. That's a third of a panel. So whether Dublin supporters or media, whoever, like it or not, Dublin need to find 8 or 9 new players, and the only place you're going to do that and find out about these guys is in National League games against the best teams, against the best players. That's where you're going to get the best feedback. There's no point in guys shooting the lights out in training or in club football. This is the atmosphere and the level that these guys need to get to, and that's what Dessie's going to find out. And then it'll be the same over the next month through March, and those 3 games. Guys are going to keep getting opportunities, and the time to assess where Dublin are at will be the first week in April, where they've played 7 league games. Ultimately, it probably looks like they are going to be relegated at this stage. It's a big ask to try and turn this around. But if Dessie and the coaches can sit there and say, we've given 8-9 guys opportunities, 4 or 5, they're probably not at that level yet, but we found 2 or 3 guys. I thought Lee Gannon was really impressive today again. Aaron Byrne coming back in. You see Bugler is now developing into probably a leader on the team that he needs to. They're the questions Dublin have to have answered. And if it is the price to pay, if they're relegated, but Dessie unearths 2, 3, 4 players coming into the summer, well, that is the price they have to pay. But it needs to happen. The players who have retired are gone. Those spaces need to be filled, and that's what Dublin are going to have to do. They've done it to date over the 4 games. They haven't got the results, but they're going to continue to do it over the next 3 games as well.
Paddy Andrews, thanks a million for joining us today on Off the Ball down in Newbridge. It was a really entertaining game of football. We'll get stuck into it a bit more with James O'Donoghue on the football pod this week, so do subscribe to OTB GA wherever you get your podcasts. We'll have to get out of Newbridge here because I think we're the last 2, and there's a danger that we're going to get locked in. So Paddy, thanks a million.